Hey guys, today we're going to talk about file permissions. So Linux has inherited from Unix the concept of ownerships and permissions for files. This is basically because it was conceived as a networked system where different people would use a variety of programs, files, etc. Obviously, there's a need to keep things organized and secure. We don't want an ordinary user using a program that could potentially trash the system. So there's security and privacy issues here as well. And let's face it, we don't want Bill to read Bob's love letters to Janet, who works in R&D, because Janet is Bill's fiance. In the end, it's important to know what belongs to me, what belongs to you, and everybody else. So Linux has a multi-user concept. The fact that many different people can use the same computer, or that one person can use the same computer to do different jobs. So that's where the system of file permission comes into play. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. So we're going to go over some basic concepts here about who owns the file, who can do what with the different files. Not an enormous amount of detail here. And but basically how you understand file permissions and how to modify certain files so that they're more secure. So let's switch over to terminal here. And it should be big enough so you guys can see it. And let me go Alright, this is a test box I made. So let's start off, we'll just do an ls-l. So we're listing out the files. And we see Linux notes.txt. Let's go from right to left here. So we see file name, Linux notes. It was created September 18th at 2:05 in the morning. The group is users that owns this file. The owner is Rob. It's one file. And then we have the set of permissions listed here. So let's see here. Alright, so these dashes and things basically break it into three sections. Read, write, execute for the owner, read, write, execute for the group, and then read, write, execute for the group or for the world, which would mean just any anonymous user on the system. Or not any anonymous user, but any user that's on the system that's not in this group. So if we go through, RW dash means that the owner can read it and write to it, but cannot execute it. So you see that same for the group here. Read, write, and no execute status. And then the world can read it, but they can't write it or execute it. There's dashes there. Let's look at another example here. If we go into bin, let's look at gzip, which is a archiving program. So you can see it's owned by root. It's in the root group. Only root is in that group on this machine. The owner has read, write, execute permissions. So the owner, which is root, can read, can write, and can run it. The group, which in this case is still the root group, can read it and execute it, can't write to it. And then the world can read it and execute it. So this file in the bin directory, anybody on this system who's a user can read or execute this command. Now let me see if we want to go backwards a little bit here. Sorry, just looking at my notes. No, let's go ahead into chmod or chmod. So there's a command, chmod, or in my head I actually say chmod. You can say chmod, you can say chmod, whatever you want. So what you want to do, if we wanted to modify permissions on something, let's go into the home Rob directory, and we set Linux notes. So let's say we wanted to change the permissions on this. We would use the chmod command. We would say whatever permissions, and then the file name. All right. So now trying to figure a good way to explain this. So the permissions, you have owner, you have owner, group, world. So you have three different things that you're going to be setting here. So you can think of it as chmod owner, group, world, file name. All right. So if we want to make this, if we want to change it up a little bit, on this one we can do chmod 644 Linux notes. See what that showed us. I know, you're like, what happened to anything else? It's numbers here, but we're going to explain that in a minute. So 6 means read write, which you see here. And then 4 and 4 each mean read. So read only for group and read only for user. So let me see if I can throw these out a little bit. See, we're in the home Rob. Let me paste in some stuff here. Oops, let's see where we go here. So if you have chmod 400, that's going to be read by the owner. 040 is going to be read by group. You know what else I'm going to put here? 4 equals read. 2 equals write. And 1 equals execute. You add these up. Well, let's not add them up yet. So now 4 equals read. So if we do 400 to this file, it's going to be read by owner. 040, the middle one is group, right? So that's going to be read by the group. 004 means anybody can read it. If we do 200, the 2 is in the first one for the owner group, so only the owner can write to it. 020 by the group, 002, anybody. And then the same thing with execute. 100 means only the owner can execute it. 010 means it's only executable by the group. And 001 only executable by anybody. So going from here, what you have to do, and let me paste this in because this will probably help you, and I'll put this in the description below as well. So if you add these numbers together, So if you have 4 for read and 2 for write, that would be a 6. So 6 is read and write. 7 would be all 3. 4 plus 2 plus 1. 5 would be read and execute. 4 is just read, and then we're getting down into what we were doing up here. Except for, well, 3. 2 plus 1. 2 is write, and 1 is execute. So, if we get back to our other thing here, let's do chmod 755 Linux notes. So we know that's going to be 7 for the owner, 5 for the group, and 5 for everybody else. So in your head, what does that mean? 7, you know, is all 3. So that means the owner can read, write, execute. The group and everybody else can read and execute, but they can't write to it. So that's where you see now. Read, write, execute for the owner, 7. Read and execute for the group, if I can highlight it correctly, that's a 5. And then the same for everybody else. So we bring this back up. And again, I'll put this in the description, this part here. Well, I'll probably put both, this and this. But that's mainly what you're going to need to try to wrap your head around. Read, write, and execute. 4, 2, and 1. Add them together. And, you know, take this little table and try to remember what everything's in there. Because you're going to be, you'll be using that a lot if you're using Linux. And then if we get to chown, C-H-O-W-N, that's kind of like chmod's cousin. We can change the ownership of this file. So Linux notes, or let's change the ownership of example so that Rob owns it. So we do chown, Rob, users, example. So what you have beforehand, you have rob.users. So you have the owner and then the group. And you can probably, a lot of times you'll see colons in there instead of a dot, but you can use a dot. So here, just by default, creating this file, you have rewrite for the owner, read for group, and read for everybody else. And that is about it. There's a little bit more information in my book, which I'll link down below as well. Ebook, it's $2.99 on Amazon, so it's pretty cheap. But these videos are basically going through the different chapters of the book, so if you don't want to buy it, that's fine. We're just going through all the chapters anyway. But I wanted to create this quick video on file permissions, ownership, changing permissions on the files, and yeah, the main thing you want to do is get your head wrapped around that 4 plus 2 plus 1 thing with the ownership, with the read, write, execute, because that's going to be, you're going to be using that a lot if you go into using Linux for your career. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any comments, please leave them below. If you want to reach out, I'm on linux.org. You can email rob@linux.org, or you can just find me on there as Rob. So thanks for watching again. We'll see you next time.